All right, today I'm going to be teaching you the distributive property, which is the last of the main properties for basic algebra. I'll start off real quick saying that this is by far, in my opinion, the most important property that I'm going to be teaching you in this class. We are going to be learning using the distributive property over and over and over again. And what this distributive property says is this. Let me spend a few minutes on this. If I had 3 times 2 plus 4, PEMDAS, if you go back to what we learned in the very first lesson of this year, PEMDAS says, order of operations says that we're going to add first, and then we're going to multiply second. So we get 2 times 4 is 8, right? So we get 8 there, and 8 times 3 is 24. So we get 24. Now, but we now have this new property called the distributive property. And what the distributive property says is this. I can multiply the 3 times this and the 3 times that and get the exact same answer. So watch this. So instead of step 1 doing parentheses, I'm going to do distributive property first. So I'm going to do 3 times 2 plus 3 times 4. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 3 times 4 is 12, and 6 plus 12 is magically, let's see here, 18, right? And I can already see back here that I made a mistake, a silly mistake a minute ago. And you're probably saying, what a stupid teacher. But right here, 2 plus 4 on my planet is 6. And you have to forgive me, I've done about 10 lessons today and my brain's getting a little bit scrambled. But anyways, 2 plus 4 was 6, and then 3 times 6 was 18. My apologies. But notice I get the exact same answer both ways. That's called the distributive property. And that's what this is saying here. A parentheses B plus C is the same as A times B plus A times C. A times B times A times C. All right, that's the distributive property. All right. So we're going to use it here. Every problem that you do tonight, I want to see the arrows going to it, and I want you to see. I want to see you write it out for me. So this means 3 times x. You're going to write it 3 times x plus 3 times 3. Now 3 times x is 3x, plus 3 times 3 is 9. I cannot solve these, that's why it says simplify here. I can bring together 3x and 9. If I had 3 x's plus 9 chips, that I cannot bring them together. They do not make 12x, and they don't make 12. All you have is 3x plus 9. Okay? You cannot bring those together. So let's do another example. Okay, we're going to distribute again. Negative 8 times this, negative 8 times that. So we're going to have negative 8 times y plus negative 8 times 2. Okay? Negative 8 times y is negative 8y plus negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. Remember, that makes the lights off. That doesn't do anything, so they stay off. So I end up with this. Now, what you have to do here is, in algebra, they're going to make you simplify very often. And this is a good answer, and right now I'd actually accept this answer, but there's a better answer. Adding a negative, could I write adding a negative with less characters, with less symbols? I could, if you think about it for a minute. Leave the negative 8y alone, and since adding a negative 16 is the same as subtracting a positive 16. So at the end of the problem, we don't like having negatives in parentheses. If you have a negative in a parenthesis, rewrite it as either a subtraction or addition problem without the parentheses. Now you may be thinking, how the heck does adding a negative 16 become minus 16? Well, think about it. If I had 17 minus 16, Is that not the same as 17 plus a negative 16? And that's exactly what I'm saying here. Minusing 16 is the same as adding a negative 16. So we're kind of just like doing the exact opposite of changing subtraction to addition. We're changing addition into subtraction. This is your best answer. Okay? All right, let's do another example. All right, we're going to do 1/2 times this and 1/2 times that. So we're going to have 1/2 times 2x plus 1/2 times 8. Let's go through the math. Remember fractions, tops mean multiply, bottoms mean divide. So we're doing 1/2 times 2 times x. So let's think about this for a minute. 1/2 times 2x. If I go through back to the associative property of multiplication, you realize that I can change the parentheses to 1/2 times 2 times x based on the associative property of multiplication. Well, that means I can multiply the numbers first. 1/2 times 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1 times 1 is 1. So this becomes 1x plus 1/2 of 8 is 4. And that's a good answer, okay? 1x plus 4 is a good answer, but that's a slightly better answer. Go back to your identity property of multiplication. 1 times x is the same as x. 1 times 3 is the same as 3, so 1 times x is the same as x. So 1 times x I can rewrite as just x plus 4. X plus 4 is my answer. Let's do another one. All right, now what's different here, what's interesting is this problem has a minus sign there, so be careful. It's just like before right here. In fact, you could add another property here if you wanted to. If you had, oops, my pen's freaking out on me. If you had, let's say, a parentheses b minus c, then this is exactly the same as the other property. The only difference is it's a times b minus a times c. You're still going to distribute the a, but it's going to be a minus between them. So it's not hard. So it's the same thing here. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to do 2 times this and 2 times that. So we're going to have 2 times 3x minus 2 times 5. 2 times 3 times x. 2 times 3 is 6. X minus 2 times 5 is 10. I can't add 6x and 10 together. I'm done. Got it? Let's hope so. All right, here's a harder one. I'm going to multiply this times this and then times that, right? I'm going to multiply it by that and by that. Now, what I would do if I were you, I'd put a 1 there. So think of this as negative 1 times w. So I'm going to have negative 1 times w times 5w plus negative 1 times w times 3. Now, associative property says I can multiply things in any order. So if I have a negative 1 times a w times a 5 times a w, let's multiply the numbers first. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. W times w is not 2w, it's w squared. Plus 1 times w times 3. Well, let's multiply the numbers first because we can do that with associative property. 1 times 3 is 3 times w is 3w. All right. And some of you are probably looking at this right now and saying, I can add w squared plus w because they're the same. You actually can't, all right? Because What I'm about to teach you in a few minutes about fruit is going to make a lot of sense, but just stay with me for a second here. You cannot add w squareds with w's. If these were both w squareds, you could add them. If they were both w's, you could add them. But if one of them's w squared and one of them's w, you cannot add them. They have to be exactly the same for you to be able to add them. Okay? So let's look at our next example. 6 plus n times negative 3. Well, you're like, oh, I don't like that. My number's behind it. Well, think about the commutative property. A times B is the same as B times A. So I can rewrite this with a negative 3 in the front. And now it's just an easy problem, right? This times this, this times this. I'm running out of room, so I'm going to do it here. I'm going to have negative 3 times 6 plus negative 3 times n. Negative 3 times 6 is negative 18 plus negative 3 times n is negative 3n. And then remember, I'll accept this answer tonight, but there's a better answer. Adding a negative. I don't like having negatives in parentheses, so rewrite this addition as a subtraction. Change it to subtraction. It was negative, so now it's positive. And that's my answer. Negative 18 minus 3n. All right. Let's have a little conversation about adding variables and numbers. If you see x's or y's or z's, I want you to think fruit. Okay? So x fruit, y fruit, z fruit, let's say A's, B's, and C's, okay? Apples, bananas, and cantaloupe, whatever, all right? But when you see letters, I want you to think fruit. And when you see numbers, so when you see numbers, I want you to think money, okay? So for example, if I had A plus 5, what I'm saying is 1 apple and $5. What's 1 apple plus $5? Is it 5 apples? Is it $5? Which is it? Well, the answer is neither. You can't add apples and money. Apples plus money don't make apple money. Apples plus money make apples plus some money. You cannot simplify that. If I had, say, 2a plus 3a, I can add these because now what am I saying? 2 apples plus 3 apples. 2 apples plus 3 apples make 5 apples. I can add them. 2 apples plus 3 bananas. 2a plus 3b. If I have 2 apples and I have 3 bananas, what do I have? Do I have 5 apples, 5 bananas, 5 apple bananas? Actually, I don't have any of those things. If I have 2 apples and 3 bananas, I can't do anything to them. If I have 2 apples and 3 bananas, I have 2a plus 3b. There's nothing I can do. I cannot simplify them. So let's dumb this way, way down for ourselves. The whole point of this is this. Unless they're exactly the same, you cannot add them. If they're exactly the same, they're both A, you can add them, 7a. If they're not exactly the same, I can't add those. 2a's plus 5a squared, that's a different type of fruit. I can't add those because they're not exactly the same. Okay? So let's do some problems here. Negative 7 plus 2x plus 8 minus 5x, right? What I want you to do is rewrite this as an addition problem. So negative 7 plus 2x plus 8 plus, subtraction gets rewrite as addition, plus negative 5x. Okay? Now it's an addition problem. I can add my numbers together. I can add my letters together. I can't add my numbers and my letters because these are fruit and this is money. You can't add them together. In algebra, we like writing letters first, so let's add our letters first. 2x plus negative 5x. 2x plus negative 5x They're different colors, so it's negative. Negative 3x. Negative 7 plus a positive 8 makes a positive 1. Remember, negative 7 plus positive 8. Those are red, those are yellow. That's rule number 2. That means you subtract them and take the sign of the bigger number. So you end up with this. Negative 3x plus 1. Next problem. Do the same thing again. Ooh, there's subtraction. So rewrite this as an addition problem. There's subtraction again. Rewrite it as an addition problem. That's addition, so don't rewrite it. Okay? We like writing x's before numbers, so let's combine our xy's first. Can we combine xy's with xy's? Are they the exact same type of fruit? Yes, so that means I can add them. What's negative 7 plus positive 15? Well, that's rule number 2. That means we subtract. 15 minus 7 is 8. 8 what? Fruit minus fruit make fruit, right? So 8xy. Then we have a positive 2 plus a negative 12. That's another rule 2. That means we subtract them. Positive 2 plus a negative 12 makes a negative 10. So we're going to add to that a negative 10. But hopefully by now you're starting to realize I don't like having negatives in parentheses. So this becomes 8xy. Sorry, really sloppy there. So we have 8xy. And then adding a negative is the same as subtracting a positive. So 8xy minus 10. All right. Got a few more examples here. I know this is a long lesson, but this lesson's actually broken up over 2 or 3 days in my class, but I'm giving you all the notes at one time. So let's do another problem. This time it's a little bit trickier because I have distributing that I have to do, and then I have to subtract. So do the distributing first. What I would do is I would do this problem first. So distribute first. Okay, so I have 5 times 2x minus 5 times 8 minus 6x. All right? Well, 5 times 2x is 10x. And then 5 times 8 is 40, so it's minus 40 minus 6x. Rewrite this as an addition problem. 10x plus a negative 40 plus a negative 6x. Do the math here. 10x plus a negative 6x. Right here, you could have just subtracted them. You know what 10x minus 6x is 4x, but you could also rewrite it and get 4x. So all this becomes, I'm running out of room, so I'm going to write it over here. 10x plus a negative 6x is 4x. And adding a negative 40 is the same as subtracting 40. Here's my best answer. Okay? Next example. What to do when you have 2 distributive properties. What you're going to do is you're going to distribute this one. You're going to distribute that one. And then you're going to bring them together. So let's do that. 6 times negative 3x plus 6 times 2 plus 2 times 6x minus, because there's a minus there, 2 times 10. All right, 6 times a negative 3x is negative 18x. 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 2 times 6x is 12x. Minus 2 times 10 is 20. So let's do the math here. Bring my x's together. If I have 18 negative x's and 12 positive x's, that's rule number 2. That means I subtract them, so I get negative 6x. Right here, 12 minus 20 is the same as 12 plus a negative 20. You can do that, which makes that negative 4. And there you have it, negative 6x minus 4. All right. Now on to the 2 hardest problems in my class. Actually, the last 4 examples here are by far the hardest problems that I'm going to teach you in this lesson. If there was a math genie and he gave me a wish of I could wish for anything in the world, I would wish that these types of problems did not exist. Right here, you see the minus sign? I'm subtracting a parentheses. I'm subtracting a parentheses. These are by far the hardest problems that I'm going to teach you. So watch this. If I had 4 minus 2 plus 5, okay? Let's do the math real quick. 2 plus 5 is 7. So I have 5 minus 7, which becomes 5 plus a negative 7, right? Which makes that rule number 2, which means subtract, which makes that negative 2. All right? But like I've been teaching you in this lesson, is we've been doing distributive property. So what I could do is I could distribute, okay? Whatever I do, I better end up with an answer of negative 2. All right? So this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to put an imaginary 1 there, because there is an imaginary 1 there. And what you're going to distribute, you're not going to distribute a 1. You're going to distribute a negative 1, and that is the key here. When you have a parentheses being distributed, you need to distribute a negative 1 to both. So we're going to have 5, negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. So I end up with negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. I end up with 5 plus a negative 2 plus a negative 5. And I told you a minute ago I better get negative 2. 5 plus a negative 5, those make 0. And I'm left with negative 2. Now I say all that to tell you this. Subtracting a parentheses or distributing a negative is by far one of the hardest things I'm going to teach you in this class. You've got to be careful with this. I call these hippos. As stupid as it is, you're going to hear me hear the word hippo, use the word hippo all the time. If algebra problems were animals in Africa, I would call these types of problems hippopotamus. Because the most dangerous animal in Africa, the animal that kills more humans than any other animal, is the hippopotamus. And the problem that gives more kids problems than anything else is distributing a negative. So from now on, when you see distributing a negative, you should say, I see a hippo. So is there a hippo here? Absolutely there's a hippo here. I'm distributing a negative. That's a hippopotamus. So let's do this problem. Leave the first number alone, right? Put my imaginary 1 there. I'm going to distribute a negative 1 to this and a negative 1 to that. So I'm going to have a negative 1 times t, which is negative 1t, negative plus negative 1 times 3 is a negative 3. 15t minus 1t is 14t. And adding a negative is the same as subtracting a 3. Hope that makes sense. Let's see another one. Do you see a hippo? Right here, my friends. That right there is danger. If you make a dumb mistake, it's right there. Okay? Leave the first number alone. 12x. Put your imaginary 1 there. You're going to do negative 1 times 2x. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. Negative 1 times 7. You've got, from right here, guys, I can actually teach you 2 ways to do this problem. And I'm going to show you both of them here. You can either do negative 1 times 7 subtracted, or you can do negative 1 times a negative 7. Why is that a -7? Because if I rewrote that as addition, it'd be plus a -7. So I'd have -1 times a -7. That's a hard concept to get, but we're going to be doing it so often later on that it'll make sense to you. -1 times a -7. Okay? -1 minus a 7 or -1 times a -7. Either way works. I like thinking of this as -1 times a -7. -1 times a -7 makes +7. Okay? There's lots of ways to do that, but that's the way I like to do that. 12x minus 2x is 10x plus 7. Okay? Hippopotamus. All right. Do you see a hippo here? That is not a hippo. That's just a fraction. That's not hard. There's my hippo. Put my 1 there. That's the dangerous part of the problem. All right. I need to do 1/4 times 4x, 1/4 times 8. So I'm going to write that. 1/4 times 4x, 1/4 of 4x. Let's try the math. 4 divided by 4 is 1 times 1 is 1. So this is 1x. 1/4 of 8 is 2. So it's -2. -1 times x is -1x. -1 times, what can I do here? I can think of this as -1 minus a -5 or -1 times a -5. I like thinking of this -5 as one number. -1 times -5 is +5. So we're down to that. Be careful right here, guys. Right there is where most people will put a negative if they make a mistake. If you ask me for help with these, the first thing I look for is right there. Most people have that as a negative. It's a positive because it's a -1 times a -5. All right, finish up the problem. A positive 1x minus 1x makes 0. These are gone. And a -2 plus 5 makes a +3. Okay? Last problem. This is even a harder hippo because right here I'm not distributing 1/8, I'm distributing a -1/8. And I'm distributing a 2/5 to these. This is not a hippo. This is a hippo because I'm distributing a negative. All right, 2/5 of 10. 10 divided by 5 is 2 times 2 is 4. Do that again. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. This is 4x minus 5 divided by 5 is 1 times 2 is 2. -1/8 times 16. 16 divided by 8 is 2 times 1 is -2x. Let me try that again for you. A negative times a positive is going to make it negative, so I know the answer is negative. 1/8 of 16. 16 divided by 8 is 2, and 2 times 1 is 2. Sorry. 16 divided by 8 is 2, and 2 times 1 is 2. So it's -2x. A -1/8 times 24. Well, a negative times a positive is going to make the lights off, so it's negative. 24 divided by 8 is 3, and 3 times 1 is 3. Okay? Right here, 4x minus 2x is 2x. -2 minus minusing 2, then minusing 3. If you think about it for a minute, if you're subtracting 2, then subtracting 3, it's a -2 plus a -3. That's going to be a -5. And there you have it, distributive property. It is by far one of the hardest things that you're going to learn all year. It's going to take multiple days to get good at this. You have to do lots of practice, make lots of mistakes, correct lots of mistakes, and you will get better at it. Good luck with this, and correct everything on these assignments. These are by far some of the most important of the year.